Did you know that not focusing on your recovery can affect your performance?
We talk about the nutrition, the things that we put into our body, the foods we eat.
You can only train as hard as you rest.
So let's say you're going into a period where you want to train harder, I want to get faster, maybe you have a competition. Then you also have to look at
more about that on today's episode. Hey and welcome to today's competence video with us at Goat Sports. My name is Adrian and with me today is my colleague, Coach Martin. So Martin, we're going to talk about recovery. Could you explain a little bit more about recovery and what it is?
So there's two parts when you're training. There's the active part where you're training and you're putting stress on your body, and recovery is more the resting part. So this is sleeping, the foods you eat, emotional stress, so everything around it.
So everything kind of just affects you the same, more or less, and you need something to help take care of that.
Exactly.
So we know that recovery comes with a lot of parts. There's active, there's passive, there's physical, there's mental, there's professional. There was a long list.
Parts,
exactly. But if you would pick out like these major things, like a few of them, let's try to simplify it. Which ones would you put more emphasis on?
So the big things we as coaches speak about, that you know about, is that we speak about sleep. This is a major thing. We talk about the nutrition, the things that we put into our body, the foods we eat, and also just plain rest. So taking a day off of training or a week off of training, or also the rest in between each exercise. So the resting part.
Well, it makes a lot of sense because when I was studying in the beginning, I learned a quote that said, you can only train as hard as you rest. And that kind of all falls into place. Yeah. But what does that quote kind of mean to you?
So for me, that means if you want to turn your training up, so let's say you're going into a period where you want to, I want to train harder, I want to get faster, maybe you have a competition, then you also have to look at the other part of the recovery. So you can't only turn up the training and go harder and harder. You also have to look on the other side. So if that means that you have to add more food, maybe you need more calories, more protein, some of those stuff. You also maybe need more sleep, because that's very important to recover from that working load. So if you want to push yourself harder, you also have to be very important with recovering more, because otherwise you won't get the results you want. You might overtrain and you might get an injury or something like that. So it's super important.
Because a lot of people don't put that same kind of impact into those parts. They have a certain type of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then you would go from training so many times a week, eating this amount, resting those amount of days.
Yeah.
But then they add the training.
Exactly.
But then everything else gets out of sync.
Yeah.
So no matter what you twist, the other one has to cut up. And it kind of makes sense because if you want to, eat more, you need to kind of train more. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I have a personal story from when I used to compete in functional training. And it was one of my first bigger competitions.
Okay,
so it was
fun.
a 2-day competition. And every day there was about 4 or 5 events. And I hadn't done it before, so I tried to load as much as I could with food and sleep and stuff prior to that. And then on the competition day, it was an event after an event after event. Sometimes
and
it was
tough events.
Tough events, very straining.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would have 30 minutes in between before it was my turn again. Sometimes 2 hours. And the uncertainty of when it is, because you kind of got put into categories and groups, was that I couldn't eat, So I would have a salad with pasta salad, and then I would have maybe a few bites, and I was okay, now I can't eat anymore. So I took a bar instead, and then another bar.
Yeah.
And I think I had 7 bars that day.
Oh no.
Yeah. And after that day, I was almost devastated because I was okay, how am I going to do this one more day?
Yeah. So it wasn't the best food. It was
it wasn't, and it was just
food.
and whatever I could fit in. And then that evening, I remember going to a restaurant with my sister, and I was just so starving.
Yeah.
So we started ordering stuff, and we ordered to the point where they asked, "So when are the rest of the company coming?" And we're no, it's just us. I ate so much, and it was good meals. It was not fast food. It was not junk. It was good meals, and I ate a lot. And I remember going into the next day, okay, whatever happens, happens. So I woke up and I had the world's best energy.
Yeah.
It was insane. I even won all of my events that day. It was that much, but it was that whatever I did and I didn't load up, the body was forcing me to get back in. And that was just like a fun story because I remember that like firsthand that my body was like craving it. And once I got it, all the effects started coming after. So it was not just that night, of course, that made it. It was a long period of training. Yeah. But it was so instant that if I didn't have the right fuel, I cannot perform the right way. Yeah. So it was very fun.
So you were turning into training. The training load was a lot.
Yeah.
But you're okay. I need a lot of food as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you, Martin, for your insights. Well, we've taken a very broad subject. Yeah. And tried to simplify it, but we need to understand that it's a lot more depth to every part of this. So it's not just, okay, if I eat more and sleep more and train less, then everything else would fall into place. But we need to understand that those three things are quite major in this whole thing. Because if we don't get the right amount of nourishment, we can replenish our system. If you don't get the rest needed in our exercises or in our weeks, to know that what kind of effect you want to get from our training, and the same thing, not sleeping enough and being able to recover completely. With all those, it's going to be hard to get results further on. It might work for a small period, maybe not even that, but in the long run, we can guarantee that it's not going to be sustainable. So even though it's broad, try to keep it simple. And as always, make sure you guys put yourself into the context in this, what works for me, and whatever I do to adjust, I need to adjust in my way. So thank you guys so much for listening to us and our competence videos. We'll be back next week with a new episode. And until then, take care.